What if I told you that the most dangerous addiction in the world wasn't drugs, alcohol, or even gambling? It's actually revenge. Today, my guest is Dr. James Kimmel Jr., a Yale School of Medicine researcher, an attorney, and an author of The Science of Revenge. We talk about fatherhood and why forgiveness isn't weakness, it's actually neuroscience. You'll find out what really happens inside your brain when you forgive and why it's the single most powerful thing you can do to reclaim peace, leadership, and even freedom. Gentlemen, I think we can all agree that sometimes revenge feels good in the moment, but forgiveness, that lasts a lifetime. That's a gift that we can give ourselves and we can give somebody else. So gents, let's dive into the science of revenge, forgiveness, and all the stuff that goes with it. I think you guys will find today's show insanely fascinating. Dr. James Kimmel, what is going on, man? My friend, how are you?
I am fantastic. I'm super psyched to be on your show here today, Larry, and talk about some good stuff and be able to connect with your listeners. I'm really up for it.
I am too. In fact, being that you wrote a book on this, if I screw up this interview really bad and make you mad, the story I'm telling myself is you would probably forgive me just in the interest of science.
No, I'm coming after you.
Oh man, I love the way we started. Okay, let's get started. Just some personal information here. So you have two kids, one who's 30, one who's 27. Mm-hmm. Tell us about them.
Yeah, my daughter is 30. She's a pediatrician in Pittsburgh, and my son's 27, and he's in law school at Villanova. So they are thriving. I just got my first grandchild. My mind has been blown, but about five and a half months ago. So I have a granddaughter also to share and love and have an amazing amount of fun with.
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Okay. So you have a daughter who's a pediatrician. You have a son who's in law school. You decided to go for the full gamut and be a doctor and a lawyer.
Yeah, kind of a weird thing there. Let's say professor and lawyer, but I am a researcher at the Yale School of Medicine, where I research revenge, violence, and forgiveness. But I spent the first 25, I still am a practicing lawyer, but I've spent my first 20 years as a full-time exclusive lawyer and litigator, being a miserable cuss for about 20 years.
So here's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
Have you ever once looked at your son and daughter saying, you just didn't meet expectations? You were only one of these things. You only went the doctorate route or the lawyer route. I did both. You're such a disappointment.
Other than just saying fail all the time, and they appreciate that because it's motivational, right? I mean, I say it in the most kind way. No. I never do that. I'm super proud of my kids, happy. I'm mainly though, just happy that they are thriving and they are finding things in life that, gives them mission and purpose. That's been my goal since they were born, is helping them find that. And whether I had anything to do with it or not, I'm not sure, but I certainly tried my hardest, and I'm happy to see that having paid off. And they both have, my daughter's married, she has the granddaughter, and, my son has a serious girlfriend. So I'm happy to see that they also have people in their lives that they can love and share their joys and sorrows with.
I love that, man. And then how long have you been married for?
I am on 37 years.
37 years. Okay, so
years, quite a bit of time.
Before we dive into this absolutely amazing book called The Science of Revenge, we're going to get into this. I can't wait for it. I have 4 boys. So I'm like, selfishly and personally, I'm like, oh, please, let's talk about this sibling rivalry thing. Yeah.
Well, I want to hear about your boys. I read about that on your website. What are their ages, if you don't mind sharing?
I don't know. There's too many of us. No, they're 19.
Oh, big
17.
Years. Okay.
Yeah. 19, 17. I'll have, as you and I are recording, 1 week away from a 12-year-old. And then my youngest is 9. And all boys.
God bless. That is phenomenal. And all boys, which that would be that's a challenge right there. I mean, it's also a joy, but it could be a challenge. Could be.
Definitely challenging. But here's what I'll tell you, man. The entertainment value alone is worth the price of admission, because I mean, some of the things that happen in this house, I'm like I'm not kidding. So my 17-year-old had the entire offensive line over here on Halloween night to carve pumpkins and eat chili. And I'll tell you, when you give 17-year-old young men who play football and eat chili free reign on what they're going to carve into a pumpkin, some really fascinating things come about. And then the smell that happens a few hours later is absolutely excruciating to everybody. So, but yeah, they're
you sort of have to move them outside at some point, right? Just for your own ability to breathe, I'm sure.
Well, not only that, but like, I'll just say this. One of the offensive line decided to carve a giant penis in the pumpkin. And then one of the other boys on the team decided to take that carved out penis and shove it in the other pumpkin's mouth. So I'm like, that's right. We can't put these outside on our patio.
Okay, right. Yeah, that's not like, it's not trick or treat friendly, but it's fascinating. Hadn't thought of that, but they would. And that's appropriate, normal, I would say very highly normal 17-year-old behavior. So that's what you would expect, of course.
Yeah, we had the PG-17 sign out in the front yard. Please don't enter this yard. Parental guidance advised. But before we get into your book, I would love to just hear 37 years of marriage, man. Please, if you can, just give us some of your best one or two pieces of advice for us guys who haven't been married that long.
Wow, that's so interesting to think about. I don't know if I've ever been asked by anyone, what is a typical question, which I've asked a lot of people, how did you make it that long? But I don't think anybody's ever asked me how. And I think that there's two pieces of advice. Advice piece number one is you've got to be really selective in the front end to find someone that is really aligned with who you are, and you are aligned with who she is. And we were, just able to do, I proposed to my wife 3 months after I met her. I mean, I wasted no time. Wow. And that just shows how it is possible. It seems rare, right? To be able to select somebody that fast in the last 37 years. And I would happily sign up for another 37 and another. Like I hit as far as I'm concerned, I hit the jackpot. I knew it when I saw it at that moment. And so that was good. And then I think in the active, how to actually make it through the 37 years, even if you've got it right. I was big on faith. I was big on, I'm a Quaker. We used to go to an Episcopal church first and then took him to a Quaker meeting. So faith was critical. I limited my kids' exposure during those years to things like cell phones and things.
Gentlemen, a quick pause here. Today we're talking about revenge. We're talking about anger. And we're talking about the way that our brains respond to pain with Dr. James Kimmel. And a lot of our kids, as it pertains to them and the things that they're experiencing online, there's a lot of cyberbullying going on out there. There's a lot of revenge seeking going on out there. And as parents, we want to keep our kids safe before a situation blows up. This is why this is why we have used Bark for the past 7 years. Bark monitors our kids' text messages, their social media, their YouTube, their gaming apps, and even their internet searches. It's only going to send you alerts when there is a serious problem and something needs your attention. You're not reading every single message. You're not spying. You are staying aware so you can step in and be the calm father so you can get things under control before things get out of control. And I got to tell you guys, over the past 7 years, I have had more fruitful conversations with my kids from things that I see with their friends, with Bark, with internet searches. And I've luckily have always gotten in front of something before there was a serious problem. And I have to thank Bark for that. I would have been completely blind to it otherwise, because I'm one of those dads that I'm going to grab the kid's phone and I'm going to try to go through it. But I'll tell you what, trying to do that and trying to go through messages and trying to go through internet searches is really freaking hard. It's really, really difficult. So Bark makes it super easy. No snooping, no spying. It will send you alerts when there's a problem, and it will even give you tips on how to have productive, fruitful conversations where your kids will talk to you and engage in conversation. Guys, you can find the Bark watch. You can find the Bark phone. And if you don't want any of those, Bark has their app. And that's what they actually came out with first. That's been the thing that they've had the longest. So if your kids already have devices, just get the app. If they don't have a phone and you're shopping for one, I highly recommend the Bark phone. My 12-year-old has it. And if your kids are not ready for a phone and you have a 9-year-old like I do, that Bark watch is a game changer. I know exactly where he's at. I can get a hold of him. I can send him a text message. The Bark watch doesn't have any apps. It doesn't have any internet searches or anything like that. Just text, call, and I know where he's at. Gentlemen, you can find everything over at thedadedge.com/Bark. You can try it 7 days for free. And if you like it, you can save 10% for life. Like I said, head on over to thedadedge.com/Bark for all those discounts. And let's get back to my show on the science of revenge.
And my wife and I really focused on just creating a family that we had a goal of achieving family excellence. That was our goal. And rather than just having some aimless goal or some independent goal, it was like a family goal. And I tried to instill that for my kids from their youngest days until now. So I don't know if that's what produced 37 years, but that's what we did.
Well, it's, it's almost like you've been in a long journey of gratitude with your wife. So like when you even said like, man, I'm a very lucky man. Like, it's just a way of honoring her. Mm. And if we look at our significant other through the lens of appreciation and acknowledgement versus expectation and agenda, usually that'll set us up for something maybe a bit different experience. So I love that, man.
Yeah. Thank you. That's interesting about the appreciate. I don't know how I could not be appreciative, because knowing who I am and trying to imagine seeing myself from the outside, I can only be appreciative because I have no idea why this woman is with me or why she has stayed with me, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's just like, thank you so much. I don't know why you've decided to be an angel in my life, but I am very, very grateful.
I love that, man. My mother-in-law, I've known my wife for almost 30 years. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. We've known each other for 22. I'm sorry, married for 22, known each other for almost 30. But my mother-in-law sent me this like collage of photos of me and my wife over text. It was like 7 photos, but it was over like the 30 years. And she's like, hey, I was going through some old photos and I decided to put this collage together of you and Jess over the past, several, 3 decades. And I responded back to her. I said, this only proves one thing, that I severely outkicked my coverage by marrying your daughter. So thanks for reminding me. So I'm with you, man.
That is exactly how I feel. That's it. Although this is much better put. Perfect. Yes. Yeah. I outkicked my coverage by a long distance. Yeah. I've been running by myself. I don't know where everybody is, but thank you for not, flattening me on the 5-yard line.
It's so funny, man. So, the science of revenge, understanding the world's deadliest addiction and how to overcome it. So one of the things you talk about on your website is there's a hidden addiction plaguing humanity right now, and that is revenge. Researchers have identified retaliation in response to real and imagined grievances as the root cause of most forms of human aggression and violence. So this is a thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing, and it's a dangerous thing. It is not a new thing. This is humanity going back throughout recorded human history. What is new is our insight and understanding that the reason we want to hurt the people who hurt us, which is what revenge really means. It's the desire to hurt someone who has hurt you, either real or imagined hurt, by the way. So you might just be imagining it. And if this spawns this desire to hurt someone in your life who's hurt you, that desire is activating inside your brain and activating the same circuitry as substance abuse, gambling addiction. The simple way of understanding it is that your brain on revenge looks like your brain on drugs. That is a new understanding, and it opens a whole array of new ways of actually, for the first time, using public health approaches to prevent and treat violence. But there are also many more nonviolent forms of revenge, but violent or nonviolent, they affect and destroy our families, our communities, ourselves. It's very prevalent in the country. It's very prevalent in any community. And there's a lot we can do about it. So it was really critical to me when we finally discovered this to get this information out to the public so that people could start to learn and understand what's happening inside their brains when they feel wronged or betrayed, humiliated, shamed, disrespected, mistreated. These are things that register as real pain inside your brain and a desire for revenge to self-medicate and make yourself feel better again. That's why we do it.
What's the difference between this and anger management?
Yeah, anger management, and this is another good reason why this information has come on. Anger management, unfortunately, doesn't have a good history of success with a lot of people, because it's really trying to teach you, okay, well, just don't be angry about this. Take some breaths, right? I mean, tell a heroin addict, don't take some drugs, just take a few breaths, maybe, go out and walk around the park. It's not enough, right? This isn't something that you can just brush away. And I'm not saying that anger management tries to brush it away. It's the best that we've had for years, but it isn't good enough, and it needs to be replaced by more of a focus on revenge seeking as an addictive, pleasure-seeking process. And then we can use all of the tools in our addiction toolkit, right? All the things that we've developed over the last 30 years to prevent and treat addiction, to help prevent and treat violence and revenge seeking, compulsive revenge seeking. So it's going to be much more empowering and much more effective.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that definitely shines a light on, just don't do drugs and just take a few deep breaths. So
right.
Can you explain the brain anatomy of like what exactly is going on, like where it's going on? And so like if this is the same part of the brain that maybe addiction comes from, like what part of the brain are we talking about?
Sure. Yeah. So my research is based on the studies of more than 60 neuroscientists at universities around the world. And what happened about 20 years ago, so this is very recent stuff, is the first of these neuroscientists began to put people inside of brain scanners to look and see what is going on inside your head when you feel that you've been wronged or mistreated, which is to say when you have a grievance and are given an opportunity to retaliate or punish. And here's what goes on, actually. So the first thing that happens is a grievance, which can be either a physical assault, much more rare, or a psychological wound or injury, much more common. And as I say, that can be anything from feeling something's unfair or unjust to being mistreated, humiliated, shamed, betrayed, disrespected. These are injuries to our egos, just to our identities. It's not it's not a survival problem, right? It's not a direct hit to our physical being. It's to our mental well-being. But the way that registers inside your brain is it activates your brain's pain network called the anterior insula. So these types of harms, all of them, register as physical pain inside your brain. This is very real pain. We've all felt it many, many times. We don't like to be mistreated. We don't like to be humiliated or disrespected or shamed in any way. And when it happens, it's excruciating. And that's why, because it's activating the pain network. When your brain feels this kind of pain, it has an overbalance now all of a sudden of pain. And your brain hates pain. So it wants to rebalance itself with pleasure. And this happens also for substance users and gambling addicts and other people too. They feel pain and they instantly start to want some counterbalancing pleasure. And the way that occurs is that inside your head, the brain instantly activates or almost instantly activates these two areas of the brain, the pleasure and reward circuitry of addiction. That is called the nucleus accumbens and the dorsal striatum. The accumbens is the area of your brain that's most closely associated with pleasure and craving. The dorsal striatum is most closely associated with pleasure, but also with habit formation and cue learning. So what occurs is that a grievance, a sense of injustice or wrong, either to you directly or somebody you care about. It could be an in-group, out-group situation. It could be somebody's offended your people, your football team, your family. It doesn't matter. They all register the same way. But when that occurs, we're looking instantaneously for this quick dopamine surge of pleasure. And that's what occurs in that pleasure and reward circuitry is it suddenly floods with dopamine. And that's the high that even drug addicts get the high really comes from the dopamine, not necessarily from the drugs themselves. The dopamine delivers the pleasure. The drug delivers, opioid will deliver euphoria. So you're getting that high, but just like with drugs, it's temporary. So this sudden feeling, and I really skipped a part. And what your brain wants and craves isn't a drug, though. It wants the pain of the person who wronged you. And it wants you to be able to know that they know that the pain they're now feeling is because of what they did to you. That is highly pleasurable. And we can see that on the brain scans, this process. So to get the pleasure, we have to actually hurt someone else to gratify our cravings in order to experience this, dopamine high that will make us temporarily feel better as the dopamine surges and then it fades away. And when it fades away, we're left wanting more, but feeling more pain. And it's that motivates us. That's how motivation starts, or craving. And it causes us to want to seek it again and again and again. We can start this with revenge fantasies, just fantasizing about hurting someone, getting them back, giving them some payback, getting back at them, all those words that we use for that. That can start to gratify us a little bit, but then it fades and goes away. And then we can think about it again and again, and we can spend sometimes years ruminating on the hurts that people have inflicted upon us and the wrongs that they've done, and imagining and feeling it. For some people, that moves out of the brain and into the real world, and we engage in revenge-seeking behaviors that may be violent or nonviolent, anything from a retaliatory insult up through and including an act of violence. The last piece of this, just to round out the neuroscience, is your prefrontal cortex. That's your executive function center of the brain. And that's there to stop you from doing things that'll have negative consequences upon you or other people. That's the control center of your brain. With addiction, that area of the brain is inhibited or hijacked. It's deadened. And when that occurs, there's nothing left to stop you from taking your revenge desires outside of your head and going out and carrying them out in the real world. So that's pretty much a synopsis of the neuroscience of revenge. And that's just been revealed in the last, 15 years.
And that is super helpful. I had no idea something like that ran so deep. Gaslighting somebody, is that revenge seeking, or is that something else, or could it be either?
I think you're right there on the last point. It could be either, right? So, why are you gaslighting someone? If you're gaslighting them because it's a funny prank and you think everybody will laugh about it in the end, then that's not revenge seeking. If, on the other hand, you're gaslighting somebody because you want them to feel pain, because you believe that you've been victimized by them in some way, and you want to hurt them back, and you're getting gratification from doing that, that is can be compulsive revenge seeking and is a revenge behavior. So it really does depend on why you're doing it and what the circumstances are.
So if I'm understanding you right, when we go to seek revenge, and let's just say we do whatever it is we're going to go do to get revenge, that gives us temporary relief, but then it ends up making us feel even worse?
Yeah, in a couple of ways. So one thing we know about revenge studies is that if people carry out revenge acts, although they'll feel good for a small period of time, they end up feeling, if we carry out an act of revenge in the real world, we usually feel more angry afterward, not less, which is interesting. We usually feel more depression and more anxiety afterward than before. We sometimes will feel guilt for doing it, and we'll often feel fear because we know that we all innately know our act of what we think of as just revenge seeking is the target of our just revenge seekings. That's their new grievance, right? We've just given them a reason to feel victimized by us, and that will result in another revenge cycle in which they'll now want to potentially come back at us, harm us. And we see this in our lives. If you with your wife, if you've ever had a fight with your wife, I know I have had many, and these things can start, and we start potentially insulting each other, and we're just going back and forth. You just hurt me, I'm going to try and hurt you. Oh, that felt good because I got you back, zing. And then she comes back, got you back, zing. And now we've got this cycle going on and on and on. Usually those end well and pleasantly for most people most of the time. But in intimate partner violence, that turns and escalates into actual violent acts. And that's why even intimate partner violence, the primary motivation for most acts of intimate partner violence is a sense of victimization by the quote unquote perpetrator and an attempt to hurt the other person to make themselves feel better.
So even like, let's just take the typical stereotypical domestic violence where a man gets physical with a woman. Do men report feeling like victimized before they act out like that? Or is there something in the brain that they could interpret it that way?
Yes. And they tend to, right? I mean, men have, very fragile egos. We all do, right? Our intimate partner, our wife or girlfriend, or anybody that we're close with, who in any way, either intentionally or even inadvertently, attacks our identity or offends us, offends our manhood, our egos, who we are, how well we're doing with the rest of the world, whether we have a good job or not, whether we're doing enough work in the house, whether we're being good enough husbands. I mean, it could just be a million reasons for dissatisfaction in any intimate relationship. But when those are voiced, a lot of that can be registered as very painful to the man and to the woman. And so a guy would get that and then maybe start to retaliate. And typically this starts just verbally. But if the guy is what I'll call a revenge addict, which is to say, engaged in compulsive, I can't control my desire to retaliate, even though I know negative consequences are coming, that transfers a guy who would normally be a peaceful, normal, loving guy. I mean, he's in love with this woman, right? How could you suddenly, on this, at a trigger moment, convert from I love you to I want to pummel you, right? Or worse. And this helps to explain what we see are these senseless acts of violence that are not senseless at all. They are revenge-seeking acts. The idea, it's a pretty common term or phrase, hurt people. That is so true and so real. We have neuroscience evidence that backs that up now 100%.
So another question about the brain then. And I don't know much about the psychology of this, but let's just take that scenario for a second. It could be, a man that hit his wife because let's just say he felt victimized or threatened or his ego was hurt. Or let's just say it's one of my boys retaliate against their brother, that kind of thing. Is there actually like a space like where we completely in our brains lose logic and we absolutely lose control? Is that real?
Yeah, that is real. And if you think about addictions, we can see that it's real in all of the things that we think of as compulsive revenge seeking. So the common definition of addiction is the inability to resist an urge or desire despite the negative consequences. Another way of putting that is becoming uncontrolled. I am uncontrollable now. I have to gratify this desire. I am being driven. It seems as though it's outside of myself. Something has gotten a hold of my brain and my body and is now driving me either towards the drug, towards the bottle of alcohol, toward the casino or the gaming app, or towards harming someone that I care about, or even someone that I don't care about. It doesn't matter either way, but someone who has hurt me. And the idea of feeling completely out of control, full rage, road rage, for instance, is a good example of this. You get cut off by an inconsiderate driver. You feel like that is an absolute injustice. It's not acceptable. And now you have two choices. If you have a pretty well-controlled brain, maybe you're going to shout, maybe you're going to slam your steering wheel, but you're going to keep it in the car. Some people will, flip the finger and go forward beyond that. Some people will chase that other driver down. And then at the most extreme, some people will try and cut that other driver off or pull a gun, God forbid, and commit a true act of violence. Any of those things can escalate. They're all, they become compulsive when they go out into the real world, despite you knowing that this is going to end badly for everyone. And we all know that it will end badly for everyone. It always does.
Okay, so can I be a guinea pig?
Yeah, go.
Okay. So you mentioned, everyone around me, like for as long as I can remember, always tells me, like, dude, like you're so like laid back, like, but maybe four boys, raising four boys will get that tolerance way up. But like, I'm one of those people that I don't really get ticked off very often. Like it's pretty rare. But like literally this just happened last week. I was in my car. My wife was with me and it was raining bad outside and I needed to get over into a turning lane. And this woman who was next to me saw my blink. I know she saw my blinker, sped up, and then stayed next to me so I couldn't get over. And I tried to speed up, and then she sped up, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
And then like I tried, and like last minute, like almost like ran me off the road. Finally, I had to slam on my brakes and get behind her. And I'm like, I was so angry. I was like, what is this woman thinking? I was like, it's raining outside. She's like, it's like she's purposely doing this. And like, I got so pissed. And there was that part of me that just wanted to catch up to her, lay on my horn, like give her the middle finger. I didn't do any of that stuff. But that part of me, I was just like, oh my God, I'm so angry right now. Like, what is she thinking? And I'm sitting there thinking, like 5 minutes after this happened, I'm like, why did I allow someone I don't even know what her day was like? She could have had like the worst news on the planet and was like, whatever, I'm just going to take this out on somebody else. No idea. But there was that part of me is just like, oh, like the amygdala was firing, but then I was able to calm myself down. Mm-hmm. And I gotta be honest, I don't know exactly what I did or how. It just sort of like went away. But given that same situation, like let's help the dudes out listening to this. Like when you're triggered like that and all of a sudden, like, I mean, I could feel it. My fight or flight was going, mm-hmm. But I was just like, whatever. I don't know what I did in that small window of like, whatever, that didn't allow me to keep on that course of like, oh, I'm just pissed. I want to like just do something to piss this lady off.
Right. To make yourself feel better, right?
Yeah, to make myself feel better.
Right. There's lots of things to unpack there. Let's start with the woman first, right? So why would she do that? Probably, I'm guessing, I'm not her, but she felt that your sudden attempt to, move into her lane would be unfair, unjust, or a violation of a social norm that she happens to have in her mind at that second. And she's like, not going to allow it. Nope, not going to happen. So I'm going to defend my space, right? So she's already either in her flight or fight, amygdala mode, which is, I sort of feel like this guy's going to be a threat. But more likely, she's already moved past that, and she's kind of being retaliatory from the get-go. So now she then, right, her attempt to inflict a little pain on you is, you're not coming in, big boy. It's over for you. You're going to have to come in behind me, and I'm willing to wreck my car to make that so. That is, and that's what we do, right? I mean, that's exactly what we're doing way too often. So she's now in a compulsive frame of mind. She's willing, despite the obvious negative consequences. We're in a rainstorm. There's a guy in another car. I'm willing to put my life in jeopardy and his to make this point. That is revenge seeking right there. And then you, of course, you have to decide how far am I going to go to retaliate. Now, you're viewing this as threat. Fight or flight is the amygdala. So congrats on having that exactly correct. Well done. But how quickly we find, and we don't really realize this, how quickly it moves from amygdala, which is fight or flight and not revenge seeking, into punitive revenge seeking shortly thereafter. So after you get behind her, right? You got to pull in, and now you're like, oh, I'm going to do something to you, lady. Something needs to happen, right? Something is going to have to happen. I cannot allow this. Even though the threat is gone now, you're safely in the lane. Everybody's okay, thankfully. But your brain is now, it's already moved beyond flight or flight, and it's moving into a revenge seeking episode in which it has to decide what it's going to do. I have to say, I really admire and I really feel like you're a lucky guy that you seem to not have a lot of those episodes. For other people, and I consider myself a recovering revenge addict, so I'm going to put myself in that category of people. Other people have a lot more trouble, a lot more often, in controlling that desire to retaliate. Whether it's, and like I said, whether it's violent or nonviolent, we can set that aside and go, we feel this compulsion, this sort of sudden taking over of our brains and our instantaneous rationalization. It's only fair. It's only just. What she did was outrageous. I can't believe that she put us in harm's way. She's going to have to be taught a lesson, and I just happen to be the right guy to teach you this lesson, lady. We do all of these things. Why? What's going on? Well, that's what's going on inside our brain. For some of us, the 20% roughly of the population who are probably addicted to revenge based on certain, it hasn't been fully studied yet, but preliminary studies suggest that just like only 20% of people who try, cigarettes, drugs, or alcohol actually become addicted to them, probably only about 20% of people who experience some form of victimization and then a desire to retaliate become addicted to it, which is to say, it becomes a compulsive behavior that they're unable to control, and it leads to negative consequences in their lives. So I'm glad to hear for you that that's not been a problem for you. But I'm sure other listeners, many listeners, are hearing this are going, oh, man, you just described me, dude. Oh, my gosh. And that's why we need to think of it as an addiction. This is why I've founded Revenge Anonymous, just founding that as a recovery community for people, especially guys who can get together and talk about this stuff and their behaviors and how to manage that. Other addiction things like professional things like mental health counseling and cognitive behavioral therapy and motivational interviewing, all those could potentially work, as well as maybe one day anti-craving medications like even GLP-1 semaglutide drugs, that are being used as effective ways of reducing food cravings, are now being studied for other addictions like substance addiction and shown to have benefit and might, this has not been studied with revenge, but might also reduce revenge desires, which would be a pretty powerful thing for people who really struggle with it. And I would say the people who struggle with it most are probably the people who have had significant and repeated contact with the criminal justice system, right? I mean, most of the people, I think, who are in jails or prisons who have been incarcerated for violent crimes are people who have had, beside some travesty of injustice where they don't belong there at all. But if they actually committed the offense, they probably have a lot of trouble with controlling their revenge desires.
Wow, I had no idea. So I'm thinking, I used to be in medical sales before this, like two decades in the medical industry. And I can just see the commercials 5 years from now. Try semaglutide, lose weight and have less roid rage, or less road rage.
And roid rage, maybe, right?
Rage, yeah.
Even though we think that's driven by the roids, but there's also an extra component of that. One thing we do know between male and females, one study has shown that for male, it's not that women also experience revenge desires. We all have seen Mean Girls, right? That movie and other movies. Women can be extremely vengeful, but one of the big differences between men and women is that when actually seeking revenge upon a target, somebody who's wronged you or you imagine has wronged you. When men do this, their empathy center, our ability to empathize with the target of our revenge seeking, shuts down. I mean, we do not empathize with the person that we're punishing. Whereas women, the empathy center stays active. They can still empathize with the person who wrongs them. And that might in part explain why a few things. One, why do men really love revenge plots, superhero movies like The Avengers or, John Wick, or any thousands of other movies and forms of entertainment that involve, somebody getting victimized and then the villain getting destroyed at the end of the movie. We love that. It's hugely gratifying. It's like taking a drug. We all feel bad at the beginning and we all crave the destruction of the villain by the end. And if we get that craving hit, we feel fantastic and we want to keep buying tickets. And, it's an addictive process for the media industry and they know it. I interviewed for my book, for instance, a former CEO of Disney Studios who said, I was like, why do you keep doing revenge plots? He said, because it always works. It always does. It just works right inside our heads perfectly every time.
Yeah, I noticed on your site you did a 18-minute video on John Wick.
Oh, yeah. And 4 other movies. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Including Lion King, one of the most vengeful revenge movies possibly ever. And because it's been so widely distributed, what really terrifies and really honestly angers me, I'm a little bit vengeful about this, is that, we show that to our children at a very young age. And for a lot of young kids, this is their first heavy dose of revenge gratification and revenge craving and seeking. And I wonder what that does to people. Compare that to Bambi, which was, the precursor. Lion King was supposed to be, and was marketed, I guess, in Disney as Bambi in Africa. But the difference is in Bambi, Bambi's parent is killed, just like in The Lion King with Simba's parent. Terrible wounding of the entire audience and the characters on screen. We all feel it. But in Bambi does not go on a revenge binge, does not try to destroy Man, the hunter that killed his parent. Bambi overcomes his desire for revenge and goes on to become king of the wild or the forest. Whereas Simba actually goes on this revenge binge that ultimately lands with him, not kicking his uncle Scar off the cliff, so that Scar, falls down a cliff, is burned to death and torn apart by hyenas, all for our viewing pleasure, because we wanted that guy's death because of what he did to Mufasa. It's a pretty tough dose, and I think we as humans don't understand yet just how powerful that is and what kind of messaging that's putting inside our heads and what kind of circuitry that is triggering inside of the brains of very young children.
Never even thought of that movie like that, but now, when I saw John Wick, your synopsis of that, I was like, oh yeah, makes total sense. Yeah. But man, the Lion King, that's a bit of a sneakier move there, huh?
It is sneaky. And I know it's, I know that I'm poking the bear for people because who doesn't love the Lion King, right? I mean, the music, the animation, the dialogue, it's all fantastic. But boy, I remember the very first time I saw it and I was sitting in the theater watching it with my kids and I was just like, oh, this is terrible. I loved it. Good movie, but terrible thing to do to the world's children. And I'm not saying that Disney understood that at the time. It didn't. This neuroscience is very recent. They wouldn't have known it. But we know it now, and it's something to think about, going forward. I mean, it should really have a much higher rating than it does, in my personal opinion.
Interesting. I never thought of that, but yeah, that is so true. Maybe Hakuna Matata means, revenge is sweet. I don't know, but
that's an interesting. Wow, very clever. That's a great insight. I've thought a lot about that movie, but I never thought about that. So thank you for that. I'll probably carry that with me.
I want to talk about sibling rivalry because I think that would be a fascinating topic since we're a dad show, and I'll tell you, man, like now that we're talking about this, like my mind is just going gangbusters right now because, so I see things like, so my 11-year-old, like he's kind of like this jokester, he's kind of like this instigator a little bit, but he jokes and he kids, but sometimes he doesn't read the room, when it comes to his older brothers. And so, he'll walk in and it just depends on what state of mind his brothers are in. But, the 11-year-old, it's funny, man, because like, to my knowledge anyway, unless things happen behind closed doors, which I'm sure they do, I just don't hear it. I only see the 11-year-old, but like he'll see one of his big brothers. She's like, "What's up, butthole?" And then depending on, the mental state or whatever's going on with his older brothers, sometimes he'll get a slap on the back of the head or he'll get laughter. One of the two. But like I see this happen all the time where one brother will initiate or instigate something, and then the other one will just like, want to take revenge out on the brother. There was one incident, and luckily 4 boys, I've only had to like physically get between these boys twice, and one of them was for this incident. So my 11-year-old was sitting on the couch with my 19-year-old and my 19-year-old's girlfriend. And my 11-year-old asked, I think, the girlfriend, because she was getting up to get something, he's like, "Hey, would you mind grabbing me a soda, please, out of the fridge while you grab yourself one?" And she's like, "Yeah, no problem." He's like, "Good girl." And my 19-year-old brother looked at me. He said, "What did you just say?" He said, "Good girl." He goes, "Do you have any idea what you just said?" And he's like, I don't know. And with that, my 19-year-old got up and started slapping the crap out of him.
Oh,
and I ran over and I grabbed him both, and I wrapped my arms around him. I was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, he's like, "He said this." I was like, I don't think he understood what he just said. Okay. I was like, and you don't need to hit him. You outweigh him by almost 100 pounds. You don't need to beat him down like that. But like, I'm like restraining him. And my 19-year-old's a very peaceful kid. Like I've never seen him get into a fight unless he's on the wrestling mat. And I'm like, but it took him like a while to calm down. And I'm like, dude, but like you just saw like this rage come out in my son, like kind of like what you're talking about, like this sort of like uncontrollable thing. And even his girlfriend was like, "Whoa, yeah, that might have been inappropriate, but you did not need to do that." Like, so, with situations like that, like I got to be honest with you, James, like I was just like, I don't even know what to say here. Like, do I sort of help them work this out? Do I punish the older one? Do I punish the younger one? Like, what just happened? To be honest with you, I still don't know like what transpired in front of me.
Wow. What that's an amazing story. Very powerful. I'm thinking about it first from the standpoint of your older son there. And I'm thinking about being with, this very important and special person in his life, his girlfriend, and the vulnerability of that in terms of our, especially as men, sort of our, whether it's taught or inbred, but there's a few things there, like we see ourselves as a protector. We also, he's vulnerable because he wants her to like him. She's just a girlfriend right now. And so his reputation and his self-identity and what kind of person he is all like right there, right on the edge. And your younger son just trips into this thing and says, "Good girl," which he probably picked up from a movie or a television show, and it got a laugh, and he was like, "That must be funny. I'll have to use that," and uses it. And so I'm imagining, again, never met your older son, but I would imagine that he felt like that was truly humiliating and shameful, and that he would be expected. I mean, two things. One is he's sort of half expected to defend her, but also, how dare you do this when I'm with her in our house and I'm trying to impress her, and you're just ruining this whole moment for me. And now you've just hurt a person that I care about, and that's like hurting me directly at the most intense level. And so, kind of kudos to your older son for realizing how inappropriate that kind of, language is. But yeah, instantaneous. I'm going to imagine if we could put him in a brain scanner at that time, we would see his anterior insula pain network, like, boom, instantaneous full activation. And then right behind it, the full activation for this desire to make your younger son, his young brother, pay for what he's done, and feel the pain that he just inflicted, or that your older son imagined had been inflicted upon him and his girlfriend. And so that's a twofer. And there are two most important things. I mean, that's his mate, potential mate interest, big important thing to protect. And so suddenly I'm going to absolutely go into mega crush force with my brother, and I'm going to make sure he feels the pain. And he did. That's my take on how that went for him. And it doesn't look like, the younger brother was in any way trying to inflict harm upon his brother or the girlfriend. But that's kind of, and this is a great insight, sometimes these moments happen with no intention to inflict any form of pain, or only minimal amounts of pain and harm. And it's, misjudged by the person who's doing it, and overreacted to and overjudged by the person who's receiving it, in ways that can result in an actual, act of family violence right there, right? So he's like physically harming his younger brother, which I'm sure he didn't want to do and knew it would be a terrible idea at the time, but feels out of control at that instant, wanting that gratification, whamming down on him and going, this feels so great. And it does. And his, prefrontal cortex was like shut down and out of the way. It's like, we're going. It's full force.
That makes a lot of sense. I'd love to know, how can dads be more proactive when it comes to, sibling rivalry and revenge seeking against brothers and sisters and that kind of thing? Like, is it the rules that we need to establish in the house, or is it more a continual conversation around this topic, or what does that look like?
That's a great question. I think it's a combination of both of those things and maybe some other things. One is, rules consistently applied. Another is how we as dads react when we think a wrong has been committed, and what we do about it, and how we respond, and how we control or don't control our own, revenge urges. And I could think of it, in instances, it's not exactly this instance, but just imagine, you have a young kid, young son, let's say one of your sons, and you live near a busy street, busy road, and your son, every time you open the door, your son, your little buddy just takes off and heads towards the street and goes right out into the street. And you're like, look, man, you can never do that. You could get hit by a truck, and I cannot afford to allow that to happen. And so you state your rule, and yet he continues to not obey it over and over again. And he continues to put himself in harm's way. So now you're like, what do I do to impress upon my son this rule and the necessity of him giving it full attention and full compliance? And so we might then decide to add some pain, right, to our child's life. Maybe going, if you do it again, I'm taking away your phone or your favorite toys, or you're not going to have your favorite desserts. You're not going to get any television, whatever it is. And you might really start to drop the hammer. But in those instances, you're doing this pain infliction to teach a lesson, and it's not for your own gratification. It's not because you're in pain. It's because you don't want him to be hurt or killed. However, I can say even in my own life, there were times when I was, doing that and imposing sort of a negative consequence on one of my kids for violating an important rule. And then I felt, and I only started to realize this after the fact, and after I started to learn about this research, I continued the punishment one or two steps beyond what was necessary to teach the lesson. And it was because I was kind of like, this kind of feels good. This kind of feels all right. it feels good to kind of carry this on. And then I'm going to convince myself that I'm doing it to teach the lesson, but I'm really kind of feeling this kind of pleasure from inflicting pain even on my own child, which is a terrible thing for me to have to admit, but I'm going to be honest about it. And I think that it's very common among people in all of these types, any type of position, whether you're, where there's a power disparity, and, one person starts off with the best of intentions, and then it can kind of just get carried away because you've activated this pleasure and craving reward circuitry. You don't know it. And suddenly you're going down this road. And if your target starts to resist, which a child will do, and go, wait a minute, and start to essentially fight back, then you've got the new provocation and the new reason to escalate. And these things can happen either between parent and child, between siblings, between spouses. It can happen in all directions, and it can happen really frequently. So being aware that that's going on inside your head is a great way of learning how to control it, because you're like, oh, wait, I just remember this conversation I heard on this podcast. I'm not going to do that. I'm shutting it down right now, trying to teach the prefrontal cortex to intervene and go, that's not okay. And we're not going to do that anymore. So, those are some thoughts there. The other thing, we talked at the beginning of the podcast, I don't know how much time we have left, but want to make sure we cover, the most important part. You asked me what was the most important part of this podcast, and I said it's about forgiveness, because can we talk about the neuroscience of forgiveness?
Absolutely. I would love, can I make just a
yeah? Oh, sure, absolutely.
And yeah, I definitely want to talk about forgiveness, because I think that's one of the most important parts. It's interesting that you bring that up. So, been a parent for 20 years. There've been, and I never understood this until you just said it, but obviously, bad decisions have consequences. We impose, natural consequences, punishment, and sometimes, punishments that aren't natural, like taking away your phone or whatever else. But I've noticed, I haven't done this in a long time, and I think it's because my wife brought my attention to it. But if I felt that there was some wrongdoing that was severe, I would do that very thing. I'll give you an example. My 17-year-old, when he was 11, first and last time he ever shoplifted. Mm. And man, I don't know if he has ever felt a wrath from me as he did when I caught him doing that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I actually didn't catch him. The store person did. And man, the store, I called the store, the guy knew it was my son. I told him, I was like, I'm bringing him up, and you impose whatever punishment you want. And I told my son, I was like, whatever this guy wants you to do, you're going to do. Mm. I'm not protecting you on this one, man. Mm. And, but after that was done, I think he had a consequence where he was grounded from friends or something like that for 2 weeks or something like that. And, then he was like, hey, can I watch this movie? No, you can't. Why not? Well, because you did this thing. And then he went to, at the time he didn't have a phone, but I think I took away, a couple of days later, he was like, well, can I play video games? I'm like, no. And my wife looks at me, she goes, you can't keep upping the punishment. And I'm like, yeah, I can. She goes, no, you can't. She goes, what are you going to have him do? Nothing for 2 straight weeks, like sit in his room for 2 weeks. And here's the funny, I thought the offense, I was like, yeah, he needs to be taught. Like, he needs to learn. I don't care if he's in his room staring at his wall for 2 weeks. It won't take everything away. She's like, you can't do that. She's like, if you wanted to do something like that, you needed to impose the punishment right when it happened, not adding to it days and days and days. And I thought about that, and I was like, man, she's wrong. Like, no, this is deserving. But here's the thing. If I really look at it, I was the one getting gratification on that. I was like, no, you're never doing this again. Let me keep punishing you. Mm-hmm. But it was in that, but I never understood that until you just explained that, because I've done that before too.
So I'm going to say, Larry, I'm going to imagine, you could tell me whether I'm right or wrong on this, but it wasn't only that your son, was caught shoplifting, and that kind of makes him a bad guy, right? But it makes you a bad parent, right? Because you're like, oh, I now have to be identified by this store owner as the parent who couldn't teach his kid to not shoplift, whose kid would do that, would actually commit a theft. And that is directly, attacking my self-identity and my self-worth, and it's humiliating, and I'm ashamed for me. I'm ashamed for my son. It's like, so you have a lot of, again, just putting words in your mouth, and if it's not true, tell me it's not. But a lot of reasons to feel pain and to have your own desire to retaliate against your son for doing that to you, right? Kind of doing this, inflicting all this pain on you on top of your need as a parent to teach this very important lesson so he's not ending up spending time in jail because he ends up being a thief when he grows up. So like two things are merging there at the same time. I feel it. But tell me, does that make sense at all?
I mean, I think when you were talking about the guy who goes to violence with his partner because his ego is in jeopardy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah,
a lot of ego there. I would feel that way. I can remember the worst time that I had with my son. Probably around that same age. Something must be happening at 11 years old. I don't know what it is, but I had a time where a parent came to my house and said, your son was teaching my kids some bad words, okay, on the bus. Now, I mean, his kids were constantly, spewing filth out of their mouths for years prior. But he had the nerve, he came to me and he complained to me that my son had done this, and this was a travesty to his family and his kids. And I, yes, I wanted to stop my kids from saying bad words, but I'll tell you, I was so filled with rage because of what I imagined that was saying about me as a dad. And, my family's reputation was now on the line. And buddy, you just messed with that. And I'm talking about my son now as buddy. And I'm going to crack it. I'm coming down on you, and I'm going to come down hard. And a lot of that was just vengefulness, because what he had done was pretty much not huge. I didn't like it, but it wasn't huge. But the punishment did not, or the teaching did not fit that crime, because I had gone beyond that to, a revenge mode. Terrible, thing to have to remember. But that's the one I remember, kind of like yours, similar.
Yeah, it's I think that, to be honest, man, like, it's just it's like a look in the mirror. It's like it became about me, and it wasn't.
That's right.
It's just like, I think we have to keep that in mind. I'm like, and I think even if I recall, I mean, we're going back like 6 years. I think my wife even said that to me. She's like, this ain't about you and your ego. So it's about, correcting a behavior, which, by the way, is kind of sort of somewhat normal. She's like, it's not right, and we definitely have to nip it in the rear end. But you can't keep punishing this kid on account for protecting yourself. And I'm like, okay, that's good. That's when you're married to a good woman. I'm like, yeah, she's got a good point.
She's right. But it is about your ego. For you, it was. Yeah. And I 100%, I'm with you. I that's how I would have felt and how I have felt. Yeah.
But I'd really love to talk about forgiveness, because, and I love the fact that you include this, because, I think a lot of us know, if you've, I've had enough life experience, that when you forgive somebody else, it's a dual gift. Yes, you're forgiving them, but it's truly setting us free as well. Mm-hmm. But what can you even talk about, like, from a brain sort of science-y perspective, what happens when we forgive?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. It's so powerful, and it's just as recent as this neuroscience of revenge. And what's so exciting about it for me is that it tracks the same neurocircuitry that is activated for revenge seeking, and it reverses it. It's unbelievable. So here's what happens when neuroscientists put somebody inside a brain scanner, give them a grievance, and instead of an opportunity to seek revenge, it's an opportunity to forgive, and they take it. By even just imagining forgiving something that somebody has done to you or someone you care about, just imagining it. You don't have to forgive. You don't have any communication with them. You're not saying, hey, I forgive you. You're not accepting what they've done is okay, because it's not. Maybe they've done something horrific. You're not even agreeing to maintain any form of relationship with the person who wronged you. But if you just decide to forgive the wrong, here's what occurs. First, that anterior insula, the pain network inside your brain, deactivates. I mean, this is an enormous thing. It's like a wonder drug effect neurologically that forgiveness is. Because instead of covering up the pain with a dopamine hit, a short-term dopamine hit, the way revenge fantasies do, with forgiveness, it stops the pain. Now, if I said to you, I've just invented a drug that can stop pain, and I'm setting up a pharmaceutical company and I'm looking for $1 trillion. People go, yeah, I'm in. Where can I go? I mean, if you got a drug that's that effective and it has no side effects, you don't need a doctor, you don't need a pharmacy, you don't need a prescription, 24/7, 365 availability for free. I mean, wow, right? Well, that's what forgiveness is. The next thing that forgiveness does neurologically, inside your brain, is it also deactivates that pleasure and reward circuitry of addiction. So it stops the revenge cravings and the revenge cues and the habit of seeking revenge that goes on without a forgiveness experience. So forgiveness does those two things. And the third thing that does is it reactivates or activates that prefrontal cortex, the executive function, self-control circuitry inside your head. And so what you've got with just imagining forgiveness is this huge brain biological benefit that is incomparable. And yet we kind of poo-poo forgiveness. We think it's being soft. We think it's something that only, spiritual people do if they're trying to get into heaven or something. And it's just not the case at all. It turns out that from a neurobiological perspective, it has these enormous benefits. And other colleagues that I've worked with, like a guy named Lauren Toussaint at Luther College, have done, multiple years of forgiveness research and found that it also has, on top of those neurological benefits, physiological benefits in terms of reduced blood pressure, reduced stress, reduced PTSD, better sleep, improved cardiovascular function, improved immune system function. A lot of physical benefits come along with it that, again, really have nothing to do with the spiritual component. I'm a spiritual guy, and the spiritual component's important for me. But from a scientific perspective, a pure atheist is getting all of these benefits. You don't have to attach it to spiritual, and you don't ever have to even communicate with the person you've forgiven. This kind of forgiveness is called decisional forgiveness, and it's something that you do inside your head. You're flipping this switch, and you're suddenly deactivating all these negative circuits, all this pleasure-seeking, all this compulsive behavior is shut down. You're back in control. You can move on now from the pain that you're remembering from events that may have occurred hours, days, weeks, months, or decades, or back all the way to your infancy or your childhood. All that can be put away, and you can then move forward into your present and your future, having your best life now by moving beyond the pains and wrongs of the past.
Man, so is it just as simple as getting out of fight or flight all the time? Just getting out of the sympathetic nervous system? Because I guess when we carry revenge-seeking thoughts, activities, it's kind of like we're on fight or flight, right?
No, not really. So your fight or flight, that's your amygdala, and that's a separate brain system. And that's being activated in response to a present threat. Okay, so an imminent threat, like truck coming at me. You want your amygdala to shut down everything. You don't want any thinking. You want truck, jump, right? It's like 2 seconds, right? 1 second or you'll be killed. So that's the fight, flight, or freeze response. Revenge seeking is something really very different. It's about punishing people for something that happened in the past. There is no present threat. So we are only ruminating on and remembering and imagining something that might have happened, like I said, hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades ago. And we're allowing those imaginations to infect and control and destroy our present and our future by dwelling on them in a way that results in this revenge craving experience and revenge gratification. We're plotting and scheming sometimes for years plotting, how can I get back at this person who did this to me? You know, the memory, as soon as the memory comes inside your head of something that some insult that you got or something somebody did in the past, you know, might have been buried for a long period of time, but as soon as it's there, it's like boom, boom, pain, and then boom, instantaneous desire to hurt that person, inflict some pain on them because they hurt you. Even though, keep in mind, Larry, this event, the pain event, it's not in the real world anymore, man. I mean, it only exists as a memory, which is a thought formation inside our brains. But we're still dwelling on this old thought formation, and the desire for revenge is just a thought formation. You can't experience either of those with your senses, and no one outside of your brain can ever experience those. They really, literally are not part of the real world, but we drag them back out, and we present them on the screen inside our heads, or what I call the courtroom of the mind, where we're endlessly putting on trial the people who wrong us, and we're playing all the roles. We're the victim, and then we're the defendant, and then we're the judge, and the warden administering the punishment, and the judge finding guilt. And we end up having this experience where we're trying, convicting, sentencing, and punishing other people in our lives. But forgiveness, and I've operationalized it in this, I have an app, for instance, this free online app anybody can use.
Miracle Court?
The Miracle Court app, where you get to put on trial, just the way I just described, anyone who's ever wronged you, whether it's been recent or decades ago, and you try, convict, sentence, and punish the person who wronged you while you play all of the roles yourself. But in the end, I've added an additional step called the final judgment, in which you sit in judgment of yourself. And from that perspective, as the judge of yourself, you can see, having tried, convicted, sentenced, and punished the person who wronged you inside your head safely and kind of gotten some methadone for a revenge addict, did that help you? Does it help you to go through another trial of this wrong that happened years ago? Probably it only dragged up all the pain again and again and again, and all the trauma and all the PTSD. So I'm like living with all this trauma and PTSD. Then we give you an opportunity to just imagine forgiving it. And usually when people experience that, even that flash of a moment, just imagine it. You don't have to forgive. Just imagine what it would feel like if you did. Most people go, oh, well, if I just imagine what it would feel like if I forgave, I would feel, wow, I'd feel like all this weight suddenly just dropped right off my shoulders. That's sort of the word. It's like this sudden experience of relief. And, you know, we all need relief, and that's the way to get it. You can give yourself that kind of lasting relief, and then, you know, do it over and over and over again every time the memory of the wrong reappears until it stops appearing, and eventually it'll stop. You don't have to actually forgive. You can just imagine forgiving and enjoy a lot of these benefits.
It's a genius app, man. I want to close really quickly with, based on something, this entire segment, this last segment. We talked about the movie John Wick. We talked about the movie Lion King. Have you ever seen the movie The Help?
I know of it. I don't think I actually watched that movie, though.
It's a really good movie. Really, really great movie. It's got an incredible cast. Emma Stone is in it. Basically, the entire movie, I think it's in the 1940s, maybe 50s-ish, but that's when in the South, it was socially acceptable to have African Americans, you know, basically clean the houses of the rich, and everybody kind of like had, you know, maids and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it was about, I can't remember her name. It's Ron Howard's daughter who is in it. She plays one of the main characters, and she plays one of these very privileged white females who just treats this African-American, house cleaner just terribly, just absolutely, like she goes out of her way to treat her terribly. And the entire movie is about Emma Stone interviewing all of these African-American women and what their experience has been, to just bring everything to the surface of what happens behind closed doors in these houses. And I'll never forget, like, you know, after like this woman, you know, this poor African-American house cleaner who works for this lady just being just bullied and tortured and just for years. And she finally just looks at her and she's like, "Are you tired yet? Aren't you just tired, basically asking her, like, you carry around all of this revenge, you carry around all these horrible feelings, and all you want to do is lash out at people. Like, doesn't that get exhausting? Like, and it's such a pivotal part of the movie. And it happens at the very end. And you can see it written on Ron Howard's daughter's face when she's confronted with this of like, yeah, like, and she doesn't say it out loud, but you can tell like it got her. She was like, actually, this is insanely exhausting and it's horrible for me, but she doesn't say it out loud, but you know it. And I'm wondering, people that harbor all that revenge, all of that unforgiveness, all of that just the stuff that just eats away at us. Yeah, man, that's got to get like really exhausting. And this forgiveness piece is kind of our first step into freedom, correct?
Yeah, freedom is what it's about. That's right. And it frees you from the wrongs of the past. It frees you from your past traumas. And it's this remedy that we can access so easily and so instantly. I mean, we are as hardwired to forgive a wrong as we are also hardwired to avenge it. And it sort of is the on and off switch of this same, one set of circuitry, the pain and then the pleasure and reward circuitry of addiction. And one activates it and the other deactivates it. And, we're better off deactivating it.
I agree. Yeah. And it sounds like it's less exhausting.
And a lot less exhausting. Correct. That's right.
Less effort. Man, I got to tell you, James, this has been awesome. I want to point everybody in the direction of your app and your book. And I went through your website. I think I actually went through every single tab because one tab just like, I was like, Revenge Anonymous. What's that? Oh, like, okay, what's the, like, and then there's this app and like, guys, you're really in for a treat because James has tremendous resources for you. But James, where's the best place for us to find things or to engage with you?
Sure. My website has most of that information that you're talking about. So that's www.jameskimmeljr.com. I'm like Jimmy Kimmel, but the full word James with the word Junior at the end of it. So, that's where I'm at. And my book is called The Science of Revenge, of course. And that's available where, all books are sold. And there's also my, my academic bio is on the Yale website, James Kimmel Jr. at yale.com.
Awesome, man. Well, guys, we're going to have all the links in the show notes for you. If you guys go to thedadedge.com/1404, we'll make your life a whole lot easier. So we'll have all of James's resources in there for you.
Oh, and let me mention the www.miraclecourt.com. That's the website where the app exists. It's not It's not in the app stores. It's a web app, so it really doesn't even have to run on your phone. But it's completely free. Just go to miraclecourt.com and you can, download it and use it. It's an audio version of this trial of anyone who ever wronged you.
Got it. I'm actually, so yeah, even if you're on your site, which is the one you're just talking about, which is jameskimmeljr.com.
jameskimmeljr.com. I messed you up, didn't I?
Yeah, no, that's all right. I got, but if you even click on the box, learn more, it takes you right to that.
That's correct.
So,
yep. It's there too.
We'll have both in the show notes for you guys. Yeah. But thank you so much for coming on. This was, to say it was fascinating wouldn't even be giving it the right adjective. I just love this, man. This was really, really educational. Thank you.
Yeah, Larry, thank you for, your time and your very thoughtful questions. And I really enjoyed myself and I really appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate you coming on, man. Like I said, guys, head on over to thedadedge.com/1404. Revenge is not nearly as sweet as you thought it was.
Right.